I am here to help you guys learn about Bali, help you be educated, help you learn the things that I didn't know and I wish I would have known before I invested into Bali. I love investing into Bali. I love the whole idea of having multiple homes around the world, and Bali being one of them. So I would love to have other people in this journey doing the same things and having multiple homes in Bali, around the world, if this is that really floats your boat. And this podcast is there to just help you navigate the Bali opportunity. I think that people are really need to get clarity. So as an investor, I'm coming into Bali. I'm so excited. I'm going to have a holiday home that's going to earn me all this ROI. It's just so exciting for me. I have no idea, what I'm actually zone-wise. So let's say that right now there is how many zones? 5 maybe zones?
Yeah, you have probably a bit more, but I guess the main one is tourism, mixed zone, commercial,
Okay.
residential, and then green
Let's start
zones are
at
the
the
five.
worst one. Let's start at green because that is such a hot topic in Uluwatu specifically. So I want to make sure we cover that. So green zone is supposedly we're not meant to build on green zone at all. It's for agricultural land. But everyone in Uluwatu is like, well, all this land is green. And you touched before on the topic and you said that 20% of the freehold, not the leasehold, but the freehold can actually be built on. I want to know, what do you mean
Yeah.
by that? Is that for
So if
fact?
we start with the worst one, I kind of think I would rather go into a green zone than a yellow zone. That's just me privately,
Okay,
and I lease a lot of land in other regencies on green zones,
okay,
developing hopefully resorts with the local communities.
okay,
But in terms of like Badung and Uluwatu,
yeah,
which we're talking about, when you get into a green zone, there will be limitations on what I talked about before, the investment amount. So to
okay,
convert a title for a PMA may be difficult if you're buying freehold. Then we get into, is the lease allowed? Is that circumvention of the law? Or is this a 5 billion worth investment and therefore the government will be okay? That's another aspect to it. But you can do villas, you can do quite a few commercial activities, but the footprint on the land, whether that is the certificate as in the entire freehold or the lease,
yeah,
can only be up to 20%.
correct,
So let's say you're leasing 20 ARE, you should technically only build on 4 of them and keep the rest green.
correct.
Some people speculate then on using the entire certificate, and they may get some commitment or not from
The owner.
the owner um, to do that. I know in Uluwatu there's an awful lot of talks about things are going to change, and the
Yes.
easiest way you mentioned before, the Batara map, if you see the front page of that, when you scroll down a little bit, it has the existing zoning map, but it has something called RTRW on the right side of it. And if you click on that, and then you click on whatever region like South Kuta Selatan, that new map that will come in force in maybe 18 months opens up for you, and you can see what then will possibly change from a green zone to tourism or something else.
Yeah. So
So
this
that
it's
could,
already released as to
it's
what's the
already public.
okay. So that's what you want to look at to see when you're making a
Yeah.
decision because there's no point keeping most of Uluwatu green because they can't really farm the land because there's no water on this land. So okay, so you're saying that green is actually more safer in a way because there's actually laws. So can you then get a Pondok Wisata on green if you comply with the 20%
You can
rule?
get, in most cases, Pondok Wisata. You can also get a villa permit, which at this stage actually is also limited to locals to operate. But to me, it opens up for more activities, but it has a much lower footprint. So that's the
Yes, as long as you
difference.
follow the 20% greenery around, you may be able to actually comply with
Yeah,
the law legally.
correct.
Then there's the yellow zone we're talking about, which is it goes green and then we talk yellow.
Yeah.
And what's the difference here? What is this? You're saying it's not better and we thought it is
Yeah,
better,
no,
but
I think yellow is considered residential,
yes.
and in the eyes of the government, they would like to protect the yellow zone from too much commercial activities because that's going to push the prices up and make it difficult for the locals to sustain themselves in these areas, and that's the thought behind it. So in a yellow zone, you'll see, and it will depend a little bit on whether you're in a green zone or a yellow zone in Uluwatu will be different from Canggu. So within one regency, it'll actually be quite different on what you can do and not do. But in general, it's for a residential purpose. Very little commercial activities are allowed. They will allow a pondok wisata, but a pondok wisata in Badung Regency is defined as your personal home with 5 bedrooms
Okay.
as a local. So I would say if you're doing 1 or 2 villas, maybe 2 times 2 bedrooms or one bigger one, 4 to 5 bedrooms, and you have some kind of lease agreement with some kind of cooperation with the local landowner, you'll probably be okay. But if you're trying to build 20 villas for commercial purposes, difficult, because when you apply for the pondok wisata, you obviously need to apply for the pondok wisata in the name of the freehold owner.
Yes.
And the PU that issue these permits don't want to see that name in multiple locations, because the regulation in Badung only allows one for whatever reason we can debate and talk about. So technically, maybe you can apply for one, you get that, then you can apply for another. If you then have 20 villas, obviously you're talking about 5 years of applications to qualify all it. And that's what we see as a massive problem with people who have already built and sold villas, and then they're trying to figure out PBG SLF in some shape or form. The government just goes,
yeah, they need
what
it
is this?
they need it with the owner. They need it from the owner,
Yeah.
and then you have to all at the beginning you should have that agreement with the owner that they have to help you to get this. If you're doing yellow, you need very clear legal understanding between who and how the tax will be paid and who pays the ongoing tourism tax if the owner even signs, because they're legally then required to pay the tax potentially because it's being registered under them.
Yeah, correct. So the local government or the locals will then often resist that, because they know that suddenly they have an application for a build permit in the Simbruk, or the system that you do that, and that will connect to the tax office, and the tax office will like, oh, what's going on here? How can you afford a villa? Last year you paid only, a low amount of tax, and then, oh, I have this agreement together with the foreigner, it's a lease, it gets detected where it is. But to not get on the screen, sometimes they resist it.
Yes.
But you need to work out that clarity clearly, who does what, pay for what.
Exactly.
In some cases, actually quite often in yellow zone, we would recommend some kind of cooperation agreement between the landowner and the investor, if I can use that word, about the PMA, so that you can show that we are beyond leasing the land and building the villa. We're actually enhancing the local in terms of having, some percentages put across from revenue or profit share, with some compulsory activities, I guess, that the owner or the family of the owner or someone provides.
Yeah. Okay, so now after yellow, we are now talking about, is there something now like orange? And is that like mixed usage that we go into from yellow to this thing?
So orange is what I would call campuran, so mixed zone, which I think in their confusion when the government started looking at this, and they were pushed by Central, and actually Badung is a very proactive regency that you can go online. It's very transparent, all the zoning and even the future plans. But I think there was a lot of confusion on certain areas. Is it residential? Is it commercial? There was already quite a lot of activity. So they decided to call it mixed zone. So it can be residential, it can be activity, as in commercial activities. And it'll be almost as open as a tourism zone. So you can do restaurants, you can do villas, you can get some, villa complexes and so on. So it's a much more viable zone to work with for the locals, but also for a foreign investor.
Okay, so, and that one is quite safe.
Yeah.
If we've got the mixed orange.
A lot easier to qualify.
And you can get the license under the PMA just like for you to submit the tax, or you have to do the local thing again?
For the taxes you can, but maybe...
for the SLF Pondok Wisata, you can use your own PMA?
In most cases, depending a little bit on the KBLI and so on.
Okay, and then we move on to the highest and the most safest zone is pink zone.
Yeah.
And in this situation, if you're buying pink zone, you're allowed to legally do Airbnb, you're allowed to do it under your legal company, you don't need any local help to...
Maybe a little bit still.
Okay.
But this is like, so as pink zone, tourism zone, you can not do whatever you want, but you can build villas, you can build boutique resorts, you can do most activities. But it's important that your KBLI then fits with what you're actually doing. So real estate allows you like 68111, buy, sell, own real estate, but it's not a KBLI that allows you to do Airbnb. This is a thing that I think the government have two views of. One is that they still want to encourage that we hire locals or bring in local management companies,
Yes.
and then we get into all this circumvention that happens in management companies. Some uh, uh, take advantage of that, some don't, but that's another aspect. But there seemed to also be like an almost forgotten part of that, which leads back to BKPM and the Minister of Investment and the KBLIs, that when we bring him, so I can buy a villa, but I can't operate it. And they go
Yes.
like, really? So I'm like, yeah, we're struggling to actually get that. So I think in the next maybe 6 to 12 months, there will be some upgrades on KBLIs that will clearly define that a PMA can operate an asset when it is in a zone like tourism or possibly a mixed zone.
So once we sell the villas, we need to be able to do the Airbnb and the management company. You're saying that the KBL, which is a license attached to your company, and I think each company can have 5, like say, is it how many KBLs can one company have?
I think you can have as many as you want,
Okay.
but the thing that people forget is this, and again, the notaries don't explain this very clearly to clients when they come in, and they say, what do you want to do? Oh, I may do this, I may do that, and you get into the, okay, just put in 10. But each of those KBLIs triggers the compulsory 10 billion paid up capital, which is a conversation in itself on how that works and not, but unless the first 2 digits are the same. So let's say you have 68111, which is a real estate, 68200 is a brokerage, those will count as one. But if they have different digits, then you suddenly have a company who is liable for, 50, 60, 70 billion worth of paid up capital, which you may or may not have, right?
Wow.
So we always recommend to a client to start with 1, maybe 2, build your business, and then maybe add on KBLIs later.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So right now, we are hoping that PTPMAs will be able to do the Airbnb business legitimately. Of course, maybe hiring locals inside of the companies, just like any PTPMA has to. If you have a PTPMA, you're required by law to have at least, I think, is it 2 employees inside of that PTPMA?
Yeah, so
With BPJS
yeah, so
insurance?
BPJS registration for obviously the director, and then when you look at employees, there is actually no law who says you have to.
Okay.
But in Bali, that is enforced to have minimum 1,
Yeah.
hopefully 2, or as many as possible. And that's just a common sense that if you're doing business, please take care of the locals and encourage, labor and impact everything in a good way. In Jakarta, it's not. So there is actually no law, but it is enforced here in Bali.
Okay. I want to move into closing the podcast. So we've covered 3 very, very important things over it. But one thing that the final 2 things that I definitely want to close on is one is this: once the villa is built, we are doing this SLF method. So once your villa is built, then we're going and submitting the SLF and we're saying, give us the license to do XYZ. It feels really unnatural and it feels really strange what we're doing here in Bali, this SLF method, rather than doing a different method, which is saying this is what I'm intending to build and please give me approval before I start digging. It's a strange environment. What is your recommendation to developers, I guess this is more for, rather than investors? How should they go about building in Bali? What is your
I think like what you're touching on is what we would call PBG, SLF, and in the past that used to be called IMB or building permit. That changed, I think, mid 2021 into PBG and SLF. And there was a part of that regulation said anything that was started when that regulation switched could go for an SLF directly. And that became a trend to everyone to circumvent and take advantage of that, saying that don't worry about the PBG, just get the SLF, which you get from 80% or more completed building. In factual terms, that's not just illegal, it's a crime. And you can get arrested, you can get serious issues. I've yet to see someone ending up in jail, but as we all know, the police now is going almost door to door to take, well permits, genset permits, PBG, SLF, and if you don't have that, they will fine you, and you will have a time frame to rectify all of that. to me, the other aspect of that is if you don't have a PPG, you can't get an insurance. Some people will say they give you an insurance, but try to collect that if something happens. If you have an accident, someone breaks a leg, you can get penalized 20% of the project cost. If someone gets paralyzed or something, much higher. And if someone dies, you're in serious trouble. And I kind of say, well, an investor comes in and they don't ask this question to the developer. For me, it's like, I don't understand it. So that I think now also the government is hitting really hard on. And I would recommend people to always get a PPG, then start building. And then towards the end, you get the SLF. And I also see that any serious contractor now, they will demand you to have the PPG because they're not willing to take the risk, because they can also be liable for this. An architect will be liable and a contractor will be liable. So if you can find someone on the side of the street who's willing to go and build, by all means, but you know.
The reason the developers are avoiding it is they're like, oh, PPG takes 6 months.
I laugh at that comment personally, because I think in most European or other countries that maybe are a bit more advanced in terms of regulation, if I go home to my hometown and try to get a build permit for a villa or a project or something, it's going to take me 2 years and I may be turned down. And here at PPG, if you know what it actually needs in terms of technical aspects and design-wise, 3 months. If you don't have that, it takes longer. But still, that time frame is very acceptable. There is also now, to wrap it up, a new regulation coming out, and it's already a law, PP28, that regulates this too. So you can fast-track a permit. But if you're not following that, you're in trouble later on.
And you can help with stuff like this, right? So if you're stuck and you need help with PPG, you can reach out.
Yeah.
So final remarks, right? Let's wrap up. What is something you would want the investors to be really aware of before they enter this Bali real estate property market? Like, what's top of mind that you want to close that maybe we haven't covered? Just as your final, beware of this. It's important.
Well, I think we already talked about that you should do your business plan and your structure, and sort of that then gets you into where you look for land or property to purchase, rather than buy land and then come back to us and say, oh, fix this, because then it just becomes a backtracking of challenges over and over and over. But I guess a more important aspect is that when you look at regulations, confusion, time frames here, it's no better back home. So we shouldn't complain about Bali being slow. They're actually really fast when it comes to regulations. And I think we should take a deep breath and sort of, what is Bali? To me, 50 square meter villa, 3 floors, or a townhouse or whatever is not Bali. And I think that market, people will struggle. Maybe we sold it on and someone else will inherit that problem. But I think when people come to Bali, they want the tropical island kind of feel, and that the market will rectify itself. What I'm saying is that we should try to keep Bali as what it is. There's nothing wrong with making money. There's nothing wrong with doing business, but let's try to do it in the right way. And I guess if you see into what we would call eco resort, some really fantastic properties out there, in the sort of ups and downs of figures and occupancy rate, they've always done better and better and better and better. So one, there is either not enough of them, or two, this is, or maybe a combination, something that people want, a sustainable feeling and some kind of responsibility feeling that we're staying in the right kind of resorts.
And Terje, do you think we are about to face an overcrowding or a property bubble bust, like the bubble busting? Do you feel like after now being here so long, are you seeing that it's just overdevelopment and us, or do you...
I think certain markets that there will be issues, and I think they will be related to what we've talked about, the zoning, quality of build, and what it is and what it's not. So I think quite a few of those complexes and villas, or whatever we call them, will struggle. In general, I think the market keeps growing and there's more and more demand, but there will be a shift towards doing the right thing, the right build, the right type of it. Obviously, we have an awful lot of other challenges, waste management, garbage, infrastructure and so on, which I think the government is serious about and finally also taking actions towards.